So, ladies and ladies. Usually, usually it's ladies and gentlemen, but with this following, it's ladies and ladies. Welcome to Both Sides Podcast. We're joined by Eoghan Murphy from Kosi.
We're off to a bad start. It's Owen, but I won't.
Man, all I was concentrating was on. I was thinking about, was it 86 or 87% women's stats? That's all I was thinking about on the top of my head.
You're all right,
mate. You've got an interesting story.
Yep.
You've got a very, very interesting backstory. You've been in the industry for quite a few years now. You've dipped out of the industry. You've dipped back in.
Yep. You've
gained a large following. And off camera, you've even mentioned that, you know, during that COVID period and coming back from being on the show, you had a drop off. You had a year of no money, working your ass off, getting back to it, getting back to where you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So there's a big story behind this.
Yeah.
Let's start this back from the beginning. When did you get into real estate? How did this all start?
I'm coming into I'm in my 10th year now, so I'm closing off on that. It's like
Congrats.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Like I'm a rookie and a vet. You know, it's like I'm still pretty young in the grand scheme of things. The greys in my beard say otherwise. But so I guess my story, obviously I was born, raised in Ireland. My mum is Australian, so her parents retired up to the Gold Coast. So then when we moved from Ireland, that's why we landed here. And I often think, like, how lucky am I? Because she was raised in Mount Druitt. So it's like, that's where they were living. Really? So it's like, I've never been there myself. I've heard some things, but you know, when you compare the two between there and the Gold Coast, obviously, where would you rather be? So I always feel quite lucky and blessed to have ended up here. But when I was 16, I played football, so soccer, and I moved to England. And I
Is this professionally?
Well, I signed for Sheffield Wednesday, so I was there for 2-3 years. So, but in the under 18, so a youth contract, and yeah, it's cool, it's amazing, whatever. But there's thousands of boys that do that every year over there. So if I'm comparing with, you know, what's around me, it's great, really cool, but, you know, obviously didn't push further than that.
Is there a reason why you didn't make it, do you think?
That could be a whole entire other podcast, but there's probably a little bit of imposter syndrome there. Like I always felt like I was probably batting above my average being there, and I felt like maybe it was a matter of time before I got found out. I didn't really have too much self-belief, but I was determined. But also I was there on my own in the north of England. The friends that I had were around me, but I didn't have any capacity or ability to get out of it. I used to envy the lads that were there because they'd come in to work, but then they'd go home and they're with their mum and dad, their mates that they all went to school with, like they can switch off, whereas I never could. And I was probably kept up appearances for 6 or so months, but it was a quick spiral after that. But I often think, like, if I was who I am today back then, would it be different? Who knows? But everything for a reason, right? But I came back here at 19 and I had to drop out of school to go over there, so I didn't finish year 12. That was a decision me and my family made at the time, because you can finish school whenever, right? So, and if I finished school, I would have missed the window to sign over there. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword, right? But I was pretty conflicted. Like, you wake up every day and you're playing football and you've got everything laid out and everyone does everything for you. I got back on the plane. My mum had already lined me up a job at a cafe. I landed on the Monday, and then the Tuesday morning I was in a cafe at 5 a.m. like chopping tomatoes and onions and shit for the day. And I was like, I remember my mum was there because she knew the owner, and I started bawling my eyes out, and then she came over to and I'm like, get away. And I felt like I needed to just go through that on my own, to just be like, hey, this is my life now. I've got to switch on, not feel sad and sorry for myself, and figure out what I want to do. Because the problem I've always had, though, is like wanting things now, always feeling old and feeling like I should have achieved something or should have done something. And I look back and I was like, dude, I was so young, I could have done. And this is important because it'll lead into the next chapter of my life. But I just wanted to probably grow up too quick. And I was working in a cafe, which was a bar, and then this guy kept coming in, got chatting with him. He offered me a job in real estate. I had no idea what real estate was. he asked me about real estate, and like my answer was like so convoluted and just like the weirdest perspective anyone could ever. I don't know why he stuck with me.
Someone walks through a door and
like weird, like, oh, I'm really good with people. You know how many times someone says that? Like, I'm good with people. But yeah, he offered me a job. He actually asked, hey, have you got your license? And I was like, yeah, I do. And then he goes, oh, well, you know, I'm not opening this business for 3 months. So then I'm going, okay, great. That gives me enough time, hopefully. Turns out it only takes 3 days. Awesome. Went and got it, started. And that was the start. That was June 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a wild story to begin with.
Yeah.
Let's, before we actually segment off onto the next part, let's talk about that first part, because there's, to walk into a job and bawl your eyes out on your first day, that means there's some trauma back there that's built up, where you've obviously, you know, you feel like you failed yourself,
big time.
or whatever you may have felt. How did you navigate it at that? Do you remember? It's been a while.
Yeah, no, big time. Like, I got a crazy memory. I don't know what that's from or why, but like I can relive experiences like that all the way back to I was like 5, 6.
Wow.
I think it was just like the realization that I had something and then it was gone and you're never going to get that back.
How did you navigate that mentally?
How did I navigate that mentally? You either have a victim mentality or you just cop it on the chin and you move on. Like, I'm not going to, like, there's people out there that deserve to have victim mentalities. Like, I know them. Some of my family deserve to, from the things they've been through. So if they decide to go down that path, that, like, I understand. But you got to think to yourself, like, where's that going to get you in life? Not very far, right? So I just put my head down, did what I had to do. And look, not gonna be honest, like, your youth contract in England, you're on like £150 a week, right? So you're getting drip fed cash. And then I was working like insane hours at the cafe, plus playing football, like in the NPL on the side. So I was making maybe like $1,000 a week. So I'm like, oh shit, like I can buy things.
That's like a lot of money.
Yeah, I know, that helped at the time. And then I think it was just coming to the realization quickly, like, hey, like I was blaming other people a lot and like blaming the coaches and the academy and all these things. I think it was being introspective and really going, you know what, you didn't make it because you weren't good enough. You didn't make it because it was your fault. That helped me move on quickly and not be caught in it. Like I see it plenty of times where people, and you see it today, even with our job, like people will always blame externally before they look internally.
Correct.
So what was the next steps once you got into real estate? How did the journey evolve?
Well, I obviously didn't want to, like I actually kept trying to like get apprenticeships and things like that. I wanted to be a builder, tradie, whatever. More so because I just wanted to go to work and I didn't want to be working like a sort of like casual job. But my mum was full against it. She's like, no, you can't do that. Don't do it. I look back now and maybe I could have done that or could have got a degree. I actually had the opportunity to go to America, potentially go to college over there, play soccer. Had a girlfriend at the time, didn't want to leave her. Again, is that a mistake? Is it not? It is what it is. Yeah. But I look at those first like 4 or 5 years in real estate where I made no money as like that was my uni degree, right? Like I was able to gain the knowledge. And because of that, it put me in a position that when I was ready to put my foot down and got an amazing brand like this, I was able to reap the rewards from it.
Yep. So you started at Kosi when there was how many people?
I think there was 10 total, yeah, 10 including total. Admin. So
including admin.
Yeah.
You've seen an explosion on the Gold Coast, an explosion in Kosi, an explosion in your own career. What do you think what's the X factor of Kosi in yourself that's really taken off over these past 5, 6, 7 years?
I think initially, it's like it was Michael Kosi, man. Like it's the big dog, right? So like everyone he was this like mysterious guy. Like who is he? No one really saw him around much. Obviously, he dipped out of the industry and he came back and he was making a little bit of a resurgence, but they hadn't gained that much traction. And I think that was partly due to the fact that the market was quite slow as well. But when he came on, it was just something different, dynamic, young and sexy. And I think the biggest thing for a brand is being elastic, not being rigid. If you see new trends, getting in front of them rather than, and that's what's built us to where we are. We were always at the forefront. People were always following. People were always changing their marketing or their signboards or whatever just to catch up with us. And that's probably slowed a little bit now, but we're getting that back. But that combined with Michael, like you've sat with him, you know, there's no one else like him. You know, if he wanted to be a $20 million agent, he could. The only thing stopping him is the fact he's got this huge business. So, yeah. And I think people need to realize that. Like the numbers he does, you just go in, look at the computer, like in terms of average comm and average sale price, it's ridiculous.
This is going to be an interesting one. Before, from your perspective, we're going to talk about you too, but just from, it's interesting to see an outsider's point of view for Michael Kosi from someone that works inside his office. What's he like?
I've always been in awe of him and like respected and looked up. And I remember initially, so my best mates, this is how I met Michael, my best mates wanted to buy a property, and I called this, and I'm not going to say who he is, but he knows he's a fuckwit, and everyone calls him a fuckwit, so this is what it is. But I called him, and I was like 21, and I wanted to conjunct these guys in to purchase it. He treated me like a piece of shit. Like I was a nobody. I felt like I should leave the industry after that, right? So then they find a property that Michael's selling. They want me to call him, and I'm like panicking. I wrote down a script of what to say to him. I'm like, if this guy who's like a good agent is what is Michael going to be? And I'm panicking, answer the phone. Like he was so humble, so nice, made me feel like I was 10 foot tall. And I was like, oh my God. And at that moment I was like, I want to work for him. And then funny enough, like met him through it. He offered me a job, and like that's how it all started. But even another instance during that period, I sold a property with Sotheby's, and I had it up for 2 days, and he knew about it, and he brought his mate past it. Mate bought it, cash, done. And that wasn't happening back in 2018. And it was 1.8 million. That was like a huge comp for me at the time. And I'm going, fuck, I've got to like, have to give half away, like this is going to clear all my debt and maybe like set me up. And I'm like, oh, well, what do you like, how much do you want, what split do you want to do? And he's like, nah, don't worry about it. Legit. Can you imagine someone doing that, an agent doing that? It's unheard of. It will never happen.
That would never happen.
So all these little things, like it's nuts. Like he should be, like he has every right to be a prick, but he's not. Yeah, he's awesome.
So then these qualities are all obviously all rubbing off on everyone here.
Yeah, I think so. Like obviously the thing is real estate has a bad rep anyway, and people are always going to be prejudiced, and they're always going to just immediately think you're an asshole. So we probably externally around the country, no matter what agency you work for, if you're doing well, people are going to want to drag you down, right? But what happened, like we wouldn't have anyone in here that didn't fit that mold. Yeah, and that's you've got to lead from the front with that.
Now, let's chat about your TV show.
Yep.
You obviously dipped into a TV show. Can we talk a bit more about it? How it affected your career, how it affected your personal life, and what it's been like since?
So I started Kosi in December 2018, just as the rebrand happened. And I just applied at Bond to study law. And I was like, okay, this is...
To study law?
Yeah. Yeah, I was binge watching Suits. I've got autism or something. I don't know. And then I just like I wasn't making enough to justify the work we do, right? And the shit we got to put up with. And I don't think a lot of people know that unless you're in it and you've been through it. You know, if you're sort of just getting by on a wage, there's probably better things you could be doing. Working a 9 to 5, having your weekends free, and not being made to feel like shit by every client, right? So I made the decision, look, if I can't make it here at Kosi, I've got to just pack it in. And at that point, I think it was maybe 4 years in, and now looking back, I'm like so hard on myself, man. I was 23. Like, you know, like what other agent at that age, like but Josh Teslin, that's it. Like other than that, there's no one. He's an anomaly. I ended up having an amazing run pre-show with Michael. Like the first property I sold with him was $5 million.
$5 million?
Yeah. Then I did one for 6.3, then for 4.5, then another one for 3 million. Like my average sale price was about 1.5 to 2 in the year before, which is decent, but it just like lifted me up. And yeah, went on this insane run, ended up getting a huge injection of cash, or a huge injection for me at the time. And I was just like, I moved out of home. all these things I'd sort of wanted or was striving for at the time, and I was like, oh, I'm sort of not fulfilled, and I know that's like airy-fairy sort of stuff, but I didn't feel happy or fulfilled by it. I'm like, damn, like, how am I going to continue doing this if like money's not the answer and success isn't the answer and selling these cool properties is the answer, then what is? And then randomly, this is super weird, get this call from someone going, hey, it's Channel 9, we got your application, we really want to do a Zoom call. And I'm like, shut up. Hung up. They call back twice. No, I'm not answering. Get an email on like a formal letterhead, and I'm like, oh shit, this is legit. Anyways, long story short, turns out a friend applied on my behalf. Yeah, so I'm like, you know, I've always said yes to things, and then just decided or found a way to turn it down later on. Like, you don't want to miss the opportunity. So they flew me down to Sydney the next morning, met with the head of Channel 9. I'm like, what, dude, this is so weird. And I had like 500 followers at the time, right? So I wasn't exposed to that world at all. And then like, yeah, you're in, we want you, starting lineup, whatever. And they were pumping so much cash into that show at the time. It was like prime time on Channel 9, billboards everywhere through Sydney, on buses, bus stops, like everywhere. And that was like a final casting call for it. So they were like, we need a decision in 2 weeks. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. But then for the next 2 weeks, I'm like waking up every day going, no, I'm not doing it, I can't doing it, to going to sleep going, I'm going to do it. And that was like a vicious cycle. Sat with Michael and he goes, listen, you're young, you're going to regret it if you do, you're also going to regret it if you don't, so just do it and we'll be here for you when you get back.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think what made me do that was I have been an adult my entire life, never partied, didn't go to schoolies, anything like that, because I was in England at the time. If I'm playing football, you can't go out, like you can't do any of that stuff. And then when I got back, I'd sort of missed that year where all your mates are doing that stuff. So I genuinely, like, I've never did sort of anything like that or anything stupid. This was my opportunity to just forget about everyone, just focus on myself, be an idiot, be a kid. And I did it. Hated it at the time, like a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma from it, because it's a weird experience, man. It's something like you can't, because it was live. So what happens on Monday is aired on Tuesday night.
Wow.
So then you come back and all of a sudden everyone, I'm not saying every, but you know what I mean, like people know you, they're yelling at you on the street. My Instagram went from like 800 to 50,000 or whatever at the time. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, it was just people going, it can't go out without people asking for photos. It was a weird world. And I got caught in it for a little bit, and I like forgot about real estate. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool.
Did
like,
it heat ego up?
I think it did, definitely. Not to the point where I thought I was like, yeah, I'm the best. I just was like, okay, this is cool. I want to be in this world. But then I was like going all around Australia. I flew to Europe, was in Ireland for a couple of weeks or a month. I was doing like TV, sort of like breakfast shows over there and stuff, like weird shit like that. You know, morning TV and stuff.
All that sort of
yeah,
stuff.
and then I'm like, hold up, like, you know what was funding it? The money I'd earned that year.
From real estate?
Yeah.
Seriously, you weren't
Well, I was getting money, but not enough to fund that lifestyle. Yeah.
Wow.
And then that was when it hit me, and I'm like, hang on, like I love this lifestyle, but it's because of the work I did. So I like pulled out of that real quick. That was at around Christmas time. Show was in November, so it was really October. Was really only caught in that for like maybe 2 months. I didn't expect. I think I'm fairly switched on. I just didn't expect to be knocked around so much by going in and doing something like that.
What made it knock you around so much?
Just like your senses are sort of, they do a lot of things in there to sort of send you out of whack, so you're not thinking straight. And then if you're in that environment, I was in it for 5 weeks, and you've got no access to the outside world. You're controlled when you sleep, when you wake up, what you eat, what you say, what you do, everything. So it's like then you come out of that environment, it's really hard to then like, it's like imagine if you were doing a drug, for instance, for 5 weeks. You can't just come off that.
Really? Wow.
You know what I mean?
That's
so it's like,
weird.
Yeah. So
that's
then
really weird.
It took like, for instance, I had my own apartment, but I was like, Mum, I can't sleep alone. I was sleeping at my mum's house for 2 weeks after.
Wow.
Yeah. I was only sleeping 3 hours a night. And then I realized, okay, maybe we were only sleeping 3 hours a night in there. That's why my body clock's like that. So those sorts of things, and then just not knowing sort of what way's up, down, left, right, what's wrong. and probably got caught in that sort of like immature kid mindset rather than someone that needs to be selling real estate.
How did you then readjust?
That was hard. So it was sort of, I came back in January. The market was really slow. That was January 2020. Because it was fairly slow on the Gold Coast at the time. Things took a while to transact. Auctions clearance rates were maybe 30%, if that.
How old were you at the time?
I was just turned 24. Yeah. So, but I'd had a good run, remember? And I had 4 years in real estate under my belt. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. We're getting back into it. But I still had a foot in that influencer world. I was still posting things. And then it got to about March, hadn't sold anything. And I'm like, man, you can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You got to be all in. So I deleted everything, deleted all affiliation with Love Island, stopped doing like podcasts for it, stopped like hanging out with people, like those types of circles. I'm like, I need to be all in. When all in, COVID hits. Yeah. So then it's another period of not making any money. So it gets to like October, haven't made a cent. And finally the pieces all fell into place. Had a really good listed one, sold it for an insane price, a record price for Mermaid Beach on Petrol Avenue, 43. And that was like the beginning of the run. Got caught into 3 off the back of that, sold them all under the hammer, got another couple. And that took me to December, and then like 2021, obviously the market booms and it's like, boom, let's go. And what annoyed me with that was, annoying me, but it gets under your skin a little bit. It's like people are going, you've ruined your career, that's it, you're done, to going on this insane run, going, oh, you've only gone on this run because of the show. It's like, you've seen the following, man. It's like what's the age bracket? That none of them are buying or selling houses.
No,
so it's like,
they're not.
That mean like it's nothing. My engagement is so poor for any real estate post. You throw your shirt off, it goes through the roof. You know, it's like
it's great. It's great if you want to pick up a date. But
Yeah,
it's probably
exactly.
if you want to pick up a listing, it's probably the worst one.
Big time.
So did you get any leverage from the social media?
No, and I was so like I'd go into listing presentations and I'd be sweating and panicking, like, please, like I hope they don't know. And the first property I listed, in the presentation, and they're like, oh, that's her daughter's coming home. And this is the environment you're stuck in. Like, you think everyone knows when they don't. Like, no one cares about you, right? But at that time, in that period, you think everyone knows. And I'm like, I look up and they're like 15, 16, so prime age bracket for that, right? They got the school uniforms on. I'm like, fuck. Like, don't look at me. Yeah, ended up signing it, whatever. But it's funny, like, sometimes the clients know, but they're embarrassed to say. And then, like, once it's sold, they'll go, were you on that show? And I'm like, fuck. Yeah. Probably the funniest thing that happened, I signed up. She's an awesome client of mine. I sold a place for her. She bought a place off me. It was a penthouse for $5,750. And then I sold it for 2 years later for $8,125.
Ooh.
But she didn't know. And then when I went and signed it up, and then she called me back the next day going, hey, I really need to speak to you. And she's real cagey. And I'm like, oh, no, like, this is, maybe she does, like, she's going to ask to get out of the agency agreement or something like that. And I walk in and she's being real weird and her daughter's there. And I'm like, why are they not saying anything? And then I look at the TV and they're playing one of the episodes. I'm like, hey, you've signed the form, you can't get out. So it's, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. But
have you ever lost a listing because of it?
No, I don't think so anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, like, think about it. I look at it this way. Like, how many agents do you know that are actually assholes? And people say that they're assholes, but they continue to get listings.
Heaps.
All the time.
Because people gravitate towards success. They don't need to like you. If they've got the signboards up, they're going to go with you. And that's probably something that's really difficult to process early on in your career. It's like, why do they keep going?
It's actually
with
really
them?
true, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many agents that don't have a good rep that do well.
Yeah, but it's like, as I said, Michael always says it, they'll gravitate to whoever's selling them. Doesn't matter if they're selling them cheap, if they're selling them great, it's whoever has the most signboards up.
Yep.
So
That's
that
very true
helped
about
me
that.
get through that period. And then the longer it goes, no one gives a shit anymore, man. And what's that, 5 years ago? Yeah. I got short hair now. Yeah, it's gone. I'll maybe relevant for 3 weeks. That's it. So
what's the game plan now? What's the next 5 years of your real estate career look like now?
Look, it's always a challenge. Like, obviously 21, like, I had a crazy year. That was my best year, but I worked so hard. Like, I was I found it really hard to like sleep. I sacrificed my social life entirely. I was going home and I was scattered and I was thinking about what I need to do the next day. I had only got an assistant maybe 7 months into that year. And I wrote over $2 million that year. So it's like, I'd written over $1 million on my own, and you can do it, but it's like, as we were saying, sort of off camera, like it's to what, like, yeah.
No life.
Exactly, none. And then people always ask like, oh, how'd you do it? And I was like, man, they're like thinking, oh, were you like reading books? Or I'd binge watch South Park from January to December. I was like, I got home, I just put it on. That's all I watched. Yeah. And then it was easy to watch something stupid like that, to just switch off and then wake up in the morning and get back to work. But then at the end of the year, again, and this always happens to me, it's like, okay, done well, but like, do I want to do that again? Took my foot off the pedal for 6 months. Then you're starting again. So the thing I've found difficult over the last 2-3 years is just
the wave,
and finding the consistency. I've built teams. I've lost teams. I've built teams again, lost teams again. Spent a lot of money on marketing, done no marketing. I'm just trying to find the balance. Like, I'm still young. I do love what I do. And I'm just trying to find a way that I can be consistent, because I think that's the most important thing.
What advice would you give to your younger self, somebody that's in their mid to later 20s, that has a few reps under their belt but are struggling with the consistency piece? Like, what advice could you share based on your experience nearly 10 years?
Yeah, it's probably then finding more of a motivator to what's pushing you, because I think, and you do see it a lot, like even Tyson Fury spoke about it. I'm not by any means measuring myself against him, but look at what happened when he won the belt. Like, he trained his entire life to win the heavyweight title, wins it, goes on a drug spiral, almost kills himself, and then had to reset. And you see it a lot, like with even in the UFC, like MMA champions, like they'll win the belt, but then they'll lose their next fight. And it's like people that have defended the belt that many times, like they're a special human. And I think the issue is their focus was and always has been to get the belt, but never beyond that. And I think that's what happened to me in Sheffield, for instance. My whole entire focus was get the contract, but it was never beyond that. So once I got it, it was like foot off the pedal. So it's like you've got to sort of
dream big.
Yeah, but have something else that are markers for your success rather than an achievement. Because I've always struggled. As soon as I've achieved or gotten what I've wanted, I've gone off the rails.
So,
and not in like a
set goals. Then, do you set goals incrementally, quarterly, monthly, yearly? How are you setting them?
I'm still learning. Like, I'm still trying to find the balance of how to do it. And I honestly, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Fair. What is off the rails?
I'll let you know when I find it.
Let me know.
Yeah.
What does off the rails look like for you at the moment?
No, off the rails is just not being motivated to come in and do what we need to do. Like, you know what it is. It's easy to do, easier not to do. So you need a motivator to come in and make your 50 calls or do what you got to do. But we all know you can come in and not do anything, and then all of a sudden a month goes by. Then you set back 3 months.
Correct.
Like, the work we do now is going to set us up 3-6 months time. So if I'm sitting here with no listings today, it's because I fucked around 2 months ago. So yeah, it's just finding that balance.
When you're surrounded by a lot of top performers in this office as well, what do you think is the common denominator amongst all of these top performers in Kosi?
Number one is time in the game. And I think that's for a younger agent. Don't be hard on yourself, because there are very, very, very few around the country, maybe around the world, that have come in and dominated young. Because it's all about who knows you rather than who you know, as we know. And they're just super processed and super diligent. I don't think anyone's, like, genuinely the only person I've ever met that's like, this guy's special and I don't think I'll ever be him, is Michael, on the way he's able to put deals together. The majority of agents aren't brilliant or amazing people. They just do what they need to do, and they're very good at doing it consistently.
What do you mean by special by putting the deal together?
He's just super intelligent, and just the way he thinks outside the box. Like, I've multiple times thought something's dead, and he'll just pull something out of the hat, and I'm like,
give me an
how have
example.
you even done that? Just he's so good at finding a solution to someone's problem, or okay, we can't get this deal done. He'll find the underlying reason as to why that person's selling, or why they're not why this offer isn't good enough, for instance. Okay, hey, we need a longer settlement, or we need to find something. He's like, okay, what do you need? All right, I've got that over here. He'll get this seller into this one, and he's just doing deals like that. All of a sudden, he's turned one deal into 2-3 deals, where I'm sitting going, I'll probably give up at the first hurdle and walk away from it. And I think that's what sets him apart. But he knows how people with money works and what they can do with it. So that whole like financial side, like it's almost as if he's an expert in that field.
What have you learned then? So you obviously didn't have any money.
Yep.
Wearing a Rolex.
You don't know if it's real yet.
Things have obviously changed for you.
Yeah.
How have you kept a level head? How have you not blown your money and pissed it up against the wall?
Yeah.
And how's it changed your life?
Never wanted to live a normal life, put it that way, or a mediocre life. But also I've always gone like, someone's always got a bigger boat, right? Like, you're not special. I look back now and think what I did at 25 was special, but at the time I didn't think that at all. But you can sit here and you can flex and you can say you've got all this and that, but it's like the next guy's got more. So it's like, who are you measuring yourself against? If you're measuring yourself against uni students, yeah, you're amazing. But if you measure yourself against Elon Musk, like, you know what I mean?
Nobody.
Yeah. So it's never been like I've never been sort of carried away with that stuff. Or
what's it for you then? What's your driver? What's your goal?
Well, I don't want to get like emotional and things like that, but like my family doesn't have a lot of money. Like my mum's had to work so hard her whole life. So I felt the pressure of needing to sort that out. And that was a special moment for me, was when things started going well. It was like, sweet, can look after mum. Bought her a car that year. That was cool as. Like,
that's cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like she was like, I can't believe yeah, I know, and it's still like, it's just nice to think to be able to do that. And now it's just normal. It's just like little things, like if there's a bill to pay, you can do it. Oh, you need to change a tire, like stuff like that, right?
That's a really
I don't want to get too much into that, but it's just like being in a position to be able to look after the people around me. And also, you know what it's like when you're younger and like you go to the cafe and then your card declines, you're like shit, and then you got to transfer like from savings account into like little things like that, you know what I mean? But I think now it's like putting all that stuff aside. So I do feel like deep down I've got ability. I know I can do it, and it would be a disappointment if I didn't reach or could see my true potential based on me not working hard enough. So I've done it before. I know I can continue to do it, but I don't want to go down the next 10 years and look back and go, I didn't reach the heights that I should have because I was lazy or didn't do things I needed to do.
What do you think will be the thing that holds you back from hitting that?
Myself.
When you say yourself, what does that look like?
Just not doing like what I need to do, but also consistently. Like we can all be sporadic and we can all have good periods, but it's like it's got to be compounding over time. So it's day on day, week on week, month on month, but then also year on year. The most beautiful thing about this industry, and this is why it's so amazing, 6 months of graft can change your life completely.
Correct.
Like 100%. And then it can get you at a level where you're sort of, you're floating, right? Like you can just stay at that level and it gives you a really good life. But is that enough? No, like you want to keep climbing. But it's like, where else can you like be under so much like financial pressure, or you need things changed to it just like at a drop of a coin at all.
If you do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when you needed that money,
Yep.
when you were working your butt off,
Yep.
and you were by yourself,
Yep.
We've asked this question before in multiple different multiple podcasts, but I think this is a very interesting one. You needed the money.
Yeah.
What hours were you doing?
Hours?
Yeah, hours.
I would get up, so I'd go to the gym at 5. I'd finish obviously at 6. I'd get into Mermaid Beach at 6:15, and then I'd let a box drop every morning. I did that non-stop 6 days a week. It was just as much as people seeing me out, like doing it, as it was like them seeing it in the letterbox. But it was more so knowing that I've done everything I need to done. Like everything I need to do. Sorry, it does piss me off when I see someone like, and they'll post on Instagram, or like, I'm doing my letterbox drops today. It's fucking 2 p.m. It's like, dude, that is not dollar productive, and no one's gonna call you.
Yeah.
It was more so about saturating the market. And like Josh obviously talks about it a lot.
Yeah.
It's like making sure you dominate the letterbox dominate everything and saturate the market. Something that obviously resonated me a lot with was Alex Jordan when he said you're either a product specialist or a geographical specialist. So for me, it was like being like a disease or a cancer. If you start small, then you can spread big. But if you're big, it's very hard to be dominant. So that's why I focused on one area and just flooded it as much as I can with marketing and obviously calls. You know what? This is the weekend in Byron. What was that? It was like, this was looping back in. I just had a mind blank. No, we were getting somewhere. What was the
question was about when you asked.
We can edit this, by the way.
What were you working? You keep
how many hours were you working?
Yeah, how many hours you were working? Okay, this is why. So it was honestly like you cannot. Luke's just finished up with us, but he was a sales manager. But I was doing that obviously at 6 a.m. prospecting, door knocking, cleaning data during the day, and then I was preparing everything for the next day in the evening. So I'd be finishing maybe at like 6 to 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
But it's also like it's easy to say like hours, but are you being productive during those hours, right? I reckon someone could do 2 hours of productive work and do as much as someone's doing in 8 hours.
I agree with
genuinely.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
You've got a very large social following. Obviously, look, admittedly, it is a lot of women. But do you think that have you been able to somehow monetize or use it to your advantage in listings?
I've never tried to leverage it because I know that deep down it's not going to make a difference. You know, maybe I should, maybe it would help, but then it's like, I suppose I look at that and I go, okay, does that then, you know, maybe if I'm up against someone else and then the client might go, oh, but he's got this big following, and then they could easily go, well, this is why. And then it's like a video of me barking on TV. So maybe I'll just avoid that.
Yeah. When you're coming up against, for example, these other industry leaders that are in this area, and they've been in this area for a lot longer than you.
Yeah.
And they've been selling a lot more expensive properties than you. You're coming up against them.
Yeah.
You're young.
Yep.
You've come from a TV show where you may have some preconceived ideas of what these people might have some preconceived ideas. How are you going into these listings? What's your mindset like? What are you thinking about before you go into these listing presentations?
Well, that's never an issue for me anymore. But back then it was don't give them a reason to question your ability. Don't give them a reason to question your repertoire. So the first property I listed was 21 Dudley Street. And I spoke with so much conviction about the market that she had absolutely no reason to ask whether or not I'd sold the properties I was talking about. I know my market genuinely better than anybody else, inside out. Every house, every owner, who sold it, why they sold it, who bought it, why they bought it, where they came from, frontages, heights, is it a development site, how old it is, like I could go on and on and on and on. So when she'd ask about a sale, I'd go, yeah, boom. She asked about another sale, tell a story, another sale. And they don't know, like the majority of the market don't know these stories, right? So getting back to what I said, it gave her no reason to question the fact that I hadn't sold anything in Mermaid Beach for a year. So then it becomes easier because you get one sale under your belt, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. All of a sudden you become an attraction agent.
How do you stop your distractions? Because you've got a large social following, as mentioned.
Yep.
You're going to have women hit you up. You're going to have people probably asking you to come out and party or come to this club. You're young. How have you stopped the distractions, put them to the side and being able to focus on your work?
I've never been a big partier. So like obviously I was in Byron on the weekend, but that was for a wedding. So that's completely rare. That's the second time I've been out this year. So look,
is that by choice?
By choice, yeah. It is like, I'm not going to sit here and like, oh, I'm some amazing guy. Like I don't go out, don't do this. Like it's just, I've got 3 best mates. They're all married, all have kids. If I'm not out with them, is it really that fun? Yeah, they're not like that. They've never been like that. We do sort of fun stuff in our own way together. But I think too much of anything or any extreme is bad. Like you've got to find a balance, right? Like there needs to be a balance of social life. There needs to be a balance of staying home. Staying home for months on end, it's not that great. You know, it's not that good for you. Like, it's fine to go out and do things, but I've never had like distractions. I've always been focused. I think the biggest thing for anyone, and when I have kids, is sport. Sport like changes your life. And whenever I see it in any office, it's like, I know whether someone's been in a team environment or in a changing room before, or if they haven't. Yep. It's like, you can have banter with someone, you have it with someone else, and they're crying. Like things like that, you know what I mean? And it's, nothing will ever, or my achievements in this I don't think my achievements in real estate will ever sort of outweigh what I was able to do when I was younger. So I don't get caught up in any of that.
How old are you now?
I'm 29.
29. So so much. Okay. What would your advice be to people our age, a little bit younger, let's say 20 to 30?
Yeah.
That 20 to 30 age bracket where people have now finally got a little bit of money.
Yep.
They can go out and party. And they can go do it every weekend.
Yeah.
They can go out to the pub every weekend.
Yeah.
But they want to be successful. What would your advice be to them?
Well, I guess the thing is, it's always finding balance. Like, there's obviously this huge thing at the moment that's like hustle culture. Get in your ice bath, read your books, be abstinent from alcohol, like all those sorts of things. But I can guarantee those guys are still going out and doing drugs. Like, they'll find a loophole. They'll find the grey area. It's about finding balance. Like I said, like my best year, people are probably expecting me to have been doing like some Wim Hof shit at like 3 a.m. every morning. But no, I was going watching South Park. Like, it's about finding what works for you. Because I think, as I said, any extreme is probably going to cause a fall off at some point. If someone extreme diets, they're going to be fat again within 6 months.
Now, you've ridden this wave. You spoke about this wave. This is actually a wave I've ridden before too. Yeah. And have ridden for quite a few years too.
Yeah.
Now, it comes down to obviously consistency within the business, and then obviously coming off track, coming back on track, coming back on track, coming back on track. What do you think is going to be, what tool do you think you're going to use to make sure that you actually stay on track? Or how do you think you're going to make sure that it actually stays consistent?
I think like what I'm very good at is like routine and just having a plan. I've always been able to implement that in like my health or my just life in general, but I've always found it difficult to have that plan at work, and I'm trying to get that now with the help of others in here, because I know if I can stick to something or my daily tasks, I can just do them. Like, it's a no-brainer, and then that'll culminate and cultivate in like me pushing beyond where I am now. My issue is like, I'll be honest, like I've always been a dreamer. Like right now, I think I can be a pilot, astronaut, lawyer, doctor. Like, seriously, this is how my brain works. I'm like, I can do this, I can do that, and that's all that. Those are my distractions. Not like going out, partying, like those sorts of things. It's like, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. And it's like, I need to just like, come on, bro. Like, this is what you do. Yeah, legit. Like,
but I just go do it.
Yeah, and it causes you like, because as I say, like 2, 3, 4 weeks can really like make a dent in what you're doing. So it's just about just probably growing up and just staying on track.
Have you dabbled in other ventures?
No, I haven't. Yeah, which is weird. You'd think I would, considering with what I've just said, but I don't. Like, the thing I do, it's a love-hate. Like, I've often thought of like, oh, maybe I could go do this. I'd be gutted if I stopped doing real estate. I think, I like to say I don't have an ego. We all got an ego. Mine's probably the biggest in the room. That's why I went and did the show. And it's like, I think I do think I need this. Like, I need this competitiveness, and I think I need these wins. It's easy to say I could do something else, but I don't play football anymore, and I think I don't know what else I could do that would sort of give me that buzz.
Yeah, wow.
What advice would you give, Kev?
Yeah, what advice would you give me?
No, what advice would you give?
I'm going to ask mine. But what advice would you give me, knowing that, and then I'll give you, we'll swap. So I went from doing $1 million to 2 million, to 1.5 to 2 million, to 1 million. So now back up to 2.
Exactly the same.
What advice would you give me?
Well, it's just, I guess it's hard to give you advice because it feels like we're probably on the same journey ourselves. But it's just finding obviously highlighting and being introspective and finding a reason as to why that's happening. The good thing is you guys get to speak to like the best of everyone in everything. that it's finding that underlying reason and then going, okay, is it because I don't love what I'm doing? Do I need to do something else? I've asked myself that question often, and it's like, no, I want to be here and I want to do well and I want to keep going. There was this quote I read the other day. Who posted it? Michael Chandler, UFC fighter. It was about Socrates or something. It was like, it'd be a shame for a man to go through life not knowing the capabilities of which his body can, whatever. And I was like, oh shit, like my fear was like dying without a six pack. It was like, you know, and I know because there was a point in time when I never thought I'd have one. So like, that's where I'm at the moment. I don't want to leave this industry. I think ultimately there's a point in time where I would love to. And I think that should be the goal for everyone, because this is a hard job to do for a long, long time. But I don't want to leave without like really, really realizing like what I'm capable of. I do feel like I'm capable of more.
If I was to swap, I'd say with me, you're right. It probably isn't the love anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Like I've been doing for 13 years.
Yeah.
Well, this is coming up to my 14th.
Yeah.
And that's why I'll still stay in real estate. I'll still stay at Manor and we'll do different bits and pieces and what have you. But the listing and selling piece, probably not for much longer.
Yeah.
But advice in terms of staying consistent, I think it all comes down to making sure, that routine's there, the team's there, for sure.
Yeah.
The consistency in team can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like I saw 2 of my young guys move off after 3 years and we had a dip in business. We've come back up. So it's consistency, routines, and exactly what Alex Jordan said.
Yeah.
You've already said it yourself. It's an inch wide, mile deep.
Yeah.
I say it to everyone now.
Yeah.
That's actually the best thing, because if you have a listing here in, like, let's say Mermaid Beach, and then you have another one here in Broad Beach, people aren't seeing the signs.
Yeah.
But if you have a listing here in Broad Beach, and then the next street over, there's another one of your signboards. Okay, now everyone else in that whole area sees 2 signboards, and it's just an incident like that. But you already know that.
But that goes back to like Tom Panos. What he always says is like, it's who knows you, not who you know, right? But I think touching on what you said, it's like, dude, be proud of yourself with what you've achieved. Like the problem with us is we're probably a victim of our own success, in the sense that we are surrounded by the best in the industry.
Literally.
So it's like, we look at what we've done and we're like, fuck, like I'm not good enough, I'm not doing it. But it's like, there's a time and place where we would have dreamt to be doing what we're doing. And if you actually compare it, if you compare it to the majority of the industry, it's like, think of the amount of people that are looking up to us right now.
It's true.
Thousands.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's like, I don't want to be complacent, but I also need to learn to like stop and smell the roses, because you look back and you go, hang on, I was like, that was cool. Like what I did was awesome. It's like those times you look in the mirror and you're like, oh man, I'm a disgrace. 6 months later, you look at a photo of yourself and you're like, holy shit, I was jacked. You know, it's like, well, like I said, stop, smell the roses. Life's good.
Wow. Man, I have one last question for you.
Yep.
Moving forward in terms of my life.
Yep.
And looking at all the different opportunities, because like you said, you're seeing this, you think that, I can do this, I can do that. I think the exact same way.
Yeah.
Instead, I signed 7 shareholders agreements. What would your advice be? Like, now, look, I have pulled back on a couple of bits and pieces and whatnot, but I am going to be stopping listing and selling real estate to go down this path.
Yeah.
If you were to do the same thing, not the industry itself, but how would you navigate a time of change of career?
I don't know. Like, I think that's very...
Because you've done it before though with soccer.
Yeah, but I was young, and you can do things when you're young. I've got a lot of respect for people that can make drastic changes like that as they're older, because the older you get, the more responsibilities. I got a mortgage. Like, I got people I got to feed, and people that actually are reliant on me. So it would be very difficult for me to do that. So I think about it, and it's like, is that fear driven or it's not? But if you can do it, respect, man.
Well,
but
that's
for me,
6 months, because it is the thing.
Yeah, it's like respect. But for me, it's like, I know this is what I want to do. I know this is where I want to be. And I feel like I'm just getting started. I've got 10 years under my belt. I'm ahead of the game. I've got youth on my side.
And that's the thing, your competitors drop off, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember going my core area of Kellyville, and when I went in there was probably, 5 agents that had been in there, 6 agents that had been in there and doing well, and one of the top ones, like the top one. But anyways, now only one of those agents exists. The top guy exists still, under me, thank you, but no one else is there. Yeah. And it's, from what I've seen in surrounding suburbs too, the same thing has happened. It's just a matter of staying in the business the longest.
Longevity, and that's the thing, like we know ourselves, like consistency is the hardest thing. Like there's going to be so many people that come on this thing and tell you the best things about everything, but like respect to those like Alexander Phillips, Michael Kalashi, Alex Short, like all these top guys, because they're doing it like day in, day out, weekend, but year on year on year on year. Like those are the people that we need to look at and go, okay, if this is what I want to do, like I've got to emulate that. Because naturally people will fall off. And it's going to be a mix of just like, I can't do this anymore, but also the lion that's climbing the mountain's always going to be hungrier than the one that's at the top, right? So don't have a fat belly, restrict your calories, and keep climbing.
Sorry, how do you stay consistent with your diet, with your staying in, not partying? I know you touched on the Sheffield, like in the soccer stuff, but you would have opportunities thrown at you left, right, and center. How do you just say no to most things? That's not like I don't like. Is that who you are?
Yeah, it's always been like that. I don't feel like I'm this like.
You didn't have to change anything.
Stoic person. I've never liked it. It makes me uncomfortable. Probably my mate actually said it to me once. You're the most introverted extrovert I've ever met.
Wow.
I can turn it on like that. If you need me to stand on stage and talk in front of 100,000 people, I could do it like that. You know what I mean? But then, like, if I'm in an environment like that, I go in my shell. I'm a bit introverted. I had to drove down to the wedding on the weekend and I filled a water bottle up with whiskey because I'm like, I need this to like,
to break through,
just to be like a little bit just more relaxed and not so uptight. And so like those are the things I go through when I think about actually like going out, and it's not something I enjoy. It has its time and place, but I sort of like seeing that as maybe I'd do that like 3, 4, 5 times a year, where it's like I'll have a weekend where it's like with my mates and we get to party or go on holiday or whatever, but for the majority of time it would just be trying to, and what I mean by going out is like maybe going to dinners and just getting out of routine a lot more.
Nice, love it.
Mate, my last question for you, just out of curiosity, do you invest in real estate or invest in?
Yeah, I've got a property at the moment, and I'm in the process of trying to buy another. I'm slowly like climbing that ladder. I do think though, and it's like, man, like how do I make 100 million? Like how do I make 200 million? Like that's where, and that's another distraction.
Leverage off the brand.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. So it's like, for me, it's. I feel like, and the decisions of where I've seen people make most money is where they've just gone, fuck it, I'm going to buy it. And they're not trying to be calculated. Every person I've seen that's tried to be calculated, they miss the boat. Like this thing's rising too quick, and it's easy to say things are going to crash and this and that, but look how many people we have moving to the Gold Coast year in, year out. I don't care what happens, and I'm not an economist. Did I say that right?
Economist,
It's the accent. It's either the accent or me dropping out of school. I don't know. Like we'll probably get smashed with comments, but you're either a buyer that's hoping and praying things are going to crash, or you're someone that realizes that, hey, it's either going to hold steady or it's going to continue rising. If you're surrounded by someone that's saying it's going to crash, it's because they've got their own agenda, right?
They're not even in the market.
No, and they want to buy it. Like they're expecting to buy hedges, $10 million for $3 million next year. Fuck off, bro. Like but it's not going to happen anymore. And even if it dips a little bit, the thing is that I've realized across the entire Gold Coast is there's not a lot of mortgage stress. So if people's motivation isn't there to sell, they're just going to bunker down. And that's, I had a difficult year. I know we're probably dragging it on, going off the question, but I had a difficult year a couple of years ago when we came off the boil off the top of the market because sellers were still here. Buyers had pulled back because we were staring down the barrel of 11 consecutive rate rises. So they're going, hey, things are going to crash. Hard for me to actually combat that because, yeah, you're right, like things are going to get tough. But what I found out was they didn't need to sell. So most people, and what I was getting listings just withdrawn left, right, and center. there was hardly any sales. We went, holy shit, like that was a bargain. So that's what we're going to find on the Gold Coast, and then stock tightens up, more people come in. What's going to happen? Oh, but hey, there's a war in fucking China. Things are going to crash. Come on, dickhead. It's like, so,
mate, thank you for jumping on the potty.
Appreciate
Hats off to you. I think from the outside looking in, I think this podcast is going to surprise a lot of people.
Very mature.
You're.
I hope so. I hope so.
But it's the you know, even I looked at you and I thought, well, man, this guy probably gets it easy. Look at he looks good, gets the sexy houses, easy as. Come in here and meet you, and you're down there genuine, but you're a hard working bloody dude. So
appreciate it, man. And
hats off to you.
My hairline suggests that. So.
That's what you wanted.
My hairline agrees with you. So it's like
legend. Thank you, brother.